writing is very important to you. But think for a second, why? What is the purpose of writing? Well, there are probably lots. You could write to express yourself. You don't have to write in order to express yourself, but some people find that that's a good way to do it and it suits them. Other than that, writing is almost entirely for communicating with somebody else. So in other words, you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for somebody else. That's probably the biggest tip I can give you about writing. Think about who it is that's going to read your writing and write for their benefit. If you keep that one thing in mind, it will help you to do the right things to enhance your writing. Okay, so let's work on that premise, that you're writing for somebody else to read rather than for yourself. Obviously, you will write for yourself. You'll want notes for yourself, little reminders for yourself, etc. But when it comes to tests, exams, and so on, you're writing for somebody else to read. So what is important in writing? Well, as it is a means of communicating your ideas, your thoughts, then clarity is going to be one of the most important things, because you're trying to accurately convey your thoughts to somebody else through words. Well, let's say through writing, because writing is more than words. So in order for you to be able to communicate effectively in writing, what do you have to be able to do? What do you need? Well, let's start with words. You're not going to be able to communicate in writing unless you have command of a good range of words. We call it vocabulary. So the range of words that you know is your vocabulary. And the better your vocabulary, potentially the better you can communicate. Because you'll be able to find just the right words to say what you want to say. So without vocabulary, you can't do it, which is why you need to develop your vocabulary as much as you can. And that is a lifelong task, if you like. You never know all the words that there are to know, and you can always learn more. So vocabulary is one thing. Now, I'm going to put together with that spelling, because if you don't spell the word correctly, it's not necessarily going to be recognized as the word that you mean. And sometimes what happens is that two words that sound the same don't look the same in writing. Lots, we call them homophones. Dear and dear, here and here, there and there, for and for, two and two, etc. Lots and lots of them. And you have to put the correct spelling in order to make your word recognizable. So vocabulary, and in brackets, spelling, have to be good. So work on them. But there's more to it. Just knowing words is nowhere near enough. You have to be able to put the words together in a suitable order so that it makes sense. In other words, your sentences need to be correctly constructed so that they actually express a complete thought or idea. Now, we can call this grammar or syntax. And what I'm getting at with grammar and syntax is it's all very well knowing lots of words, but if you don't know how to string them together, you still can't communicate effectively. So you need to know which words you need in order to complete your sentence, your thought, your idea. And how do you get that? Well, vocabulary is relatively easy. You get that from a dictionary. Any word you come across and you're not sure what it means, you can look it up in the dictionary and then write down its meanings and review it and build up your vocabulary slowly but surely like that. And the same again with spellings. Any word you have difficulty spelling correctly, you can practice it, see it, write it, say it. Lots of things that can help you to spell words correctly. But what about grammar? What about being able to put the words together in a way that makes your meaning clear? Well, you can really only learn that through speaking and listening to and reading good English. So, lots of varied reading. Listening to lots of good English being spoken. And you can hear that on the radio, you can hear that in spoken word books, you can hear that on television, depending what you're watching. So you have to expose yourself to some good spoken English if you want to get a good idea of this. And you have to practice it yourself too. So that's really the way to do this. So in other words, you're doing this all the time, or you're failing to do it all the time. It's up to you. It's something that you could learn from a book, but it wouldn't be effective, and it would be extremely tedious to learn from a book. Much better to learn it the way that I've said, and more effective too. So do yourself a favor and do that. So that's great. Now we know lots of words and how to spell them, and we know what order to put them in to make sense. But even that's not enough. When I speak, I emphasize certain words. I have pauses. And I stress certain things. But when you're writing, there's none of that. So how do you, as the writer, convey those things? Well, vocabulary helps, and the order of the words helps, but they're not enough. You need punctuation. So punctuation helps you to, well, let's say it doesn't help you, it's your tool, just as words are your tools. So punctuation is one of your tools for helping your reader to understand your intended meaning. So remember, it's all about the audience, your reader, the person for whose benefit you're writing. So I'll come back to that again. When you write, the number one tip I can give you, which will help you more than anything, is when you write, think about who you're writing for, who's your reader, and you're writing for their benefit. So when you punctuate a sentence or your piece of writing, the punctuation should be with your reader in mind. When they read it, will they get your intended meaning? Have you expressed your intended meaning to somebody who doesn't already know what you mean? Will they understand your meaning from the way that you've written it, from the words you've used, the order you've written them in, and from the punctuation that you've used? One more thing. Again, to help your reader, it helps if you divide up your writing. If it's more than just a few lines, it helps them divide it into chunks. And each chunk being on a particular topic or subject or a particular event or person. And you can guess what we call those chunks. We call them paragraphs. By dividing your writing up into paragraphs, again, you're helping your reader. Because a paragraph will be about a particular thing, a particular topic, let's say. And so when you start a new paragraph, you are effectively telling your reader, I'm now changing something here. So they're ready, they understand. So here we have, if you like, a summary of how to make your writing effective. And you should keep this in mind every time you do some writing. One, you need to have lots of words at your fingertips, tools that you can use to do the job. And you need to spell them correctly so that it's obvious to your reader which word you're talking about, which word you mean. You need to know how to string the words together, which words are necessary, which ones are not necessary, what order do they need to be in order to express your meaning, grammar and syntax. You need punctuation, which helps the reader to read it the way that you want them to read it, to understand your meaning. And you use paragraphs in order to divide it into chunks which signal to your reader that, oh, we're onto something slightly different now.